Well, welcome to a new Harry's Farm video, and we have finished combining. This year we finished on the 8th of August. Look at the records, that was 20 days earlier than last year. But interestingly, 2018, we finished on the 7th of August, so it isn't actually the earliest harvest we've ever done. But yeah, it's time to put the combine away, which is always a weird sort of feeling. But I just mentioned this because I couldn't believe this is today's Sunday. This was Friday's Farmers Weekly arrived in the post, and we're on the cover. It's combine. It was an article done. James Andrew dropped by, one of the journalists at Farmers Weekly, wanted to discuss machinery and all the machines I've owned. So yeah, I'm on the cover of Farmers Weekly this week. Just take you around the combine, because this year it has an hour meter. You don't obviously do miles in a combine like a car. You record the number of hours worked and engine running time. And this year we did harvest in 49 hours running of the actual rotors. That is a lot less. Last year was 57 hours. For a machine, a normal combine, you would expect to do 200 hours or thereabouts during harvest. So it shows you how big a combine this is for this size of farm. We can do harvest in 6 days in theory, quite easily cut 50 acres a day, about 300 acres just over harvested this year. And it just gives us this capacity to get it dry, to go when we want. And 2022 will go down as the easiest harvest I've ever known. That consistent warm weather just made it really easy to plan. You could start when you wanted. Weirdly, a lot of people were starting very early in the morning, unheard of times. Next door was harvesting at 4 a.m. to cut beans and finishing at 11 o'clock. Another neighbour was doing the same purely because of the fire risk. So 2022 was a bizarre harvesting year, extremely easy. Good quality actual crops themselves. The spec weights of the wheat are off the scale, haven't got the protein, but just such an easy year really for planning. Fire risk was a major issue for some people, and during that exceptionally hot period when we're hitting the high 30s, there were a large number of machines went up. They just couldn't cope with that sort of heat. You only need a tiniest spark somewhere and it all goes up. So that was the other thing 2022 will be remembered for. But yeah, this one, it just performed just as you want a combine to do. It was, dare I say, it was almost a pleasure combining this year, and it seems crazy to be tucking it away. You know, here we are, 20th of August, got to clean it up, down, tuck it away for a year, and not get it back out again until July time. Anyway, let's head up to the other field, see what's going on the last field of wheat that we combined. Well, this is the last field we combined. It's called Lamphole, and I've been renting it the last few years off my neighbour. And this year we won't be renting it. This is going in. He's taken it back and he's entered it into an environmental scheme, a 5-year scheme. So yeah, that was the last time we were combine out here. And there's quite a lot of this going on in this area, land coming out of production and going into environmental schemes. There's about 50 acres going in here. Not exactly sure, but it's a real sea change what's going on in agriculture and cropping. And it's funny, as soon as the combine's put away, all the focus is on harvest 23. Cultivations, planting, we've sort of decided what we're actually going to plant. And I don't think the government quite realises how far ahead we have to think and when we actually do things. And I've had to think really long and hard what exactly we're going to grow on the other land elsewhere, because these environmental schemes are sort of in the mix now. Never used to be, but I think especially with oilseed rape, it's a real decision time for a lot of growers. Will they continue putting spring beans or oilseed rape in? But it's all to do with a balance of what grain shed capacity you've got, what the state of your machinery is, and all those sort of things come in the mix. And then the government comes up with a scheme and it's even more complicated, and there's a lot of people are giving up basically growing crops in this area and taking on the government schemes. And you're not really reading how much it's actually affecting. I'm intrigued because no one does a census of these things, but I'm going to be fascinated what it's going to be for next year. So anyway, so yeah, the end of an era for me, sort of not farming this ground anymore. But life continues. We've got plenty more acres to be farming over there, and as soon as harvest was over, we normally put oilseed rape in as soon as we can. And last year I think it went in something like the 3rd of August. This year we actually drilled it on the 17th of August. So let's go up there and see if we can find any oilseed rape actually coming through the ground. Right, well, this is where the oilseed rape has gone in this year, where we were very busy earlier this week. If you live in the UK, you will know that we had those thunderstorms. The hot spell ended with these thunderstorms. I think it was Monday, Tuesday this week, and we used that as a trigger to put the oilseed rape in. We had 10 mil of rain when those hills over there and the farm the other side had 30 mil, so we weren't that lucky on these sort of thunderstorms that came across, but it was enough, I think, to risk putting oilseed rape in. We have 100 acres to go in. This is 50 acres here. I haven't risked the whole 100 acres. I've just put this 50 in, and fingers crossed to see what happens. Now, oilseed rape is next to impossible to find until it actually germinates. I thought I'd have a look just in case I could show you something coming up, but I don't think we can we, Stanley? There's not a lot going on, but there is enough moisture to have triggered, I'm sure, germination. It does look dry now. We are all farmers who have planted oilseed rape. You see, I know there's moisture there because look, there's a barley that is come out the back of the combine, whatever, but it has chitted and there's roots and there's a shoot coming up. So if the barley is chitted, then the oilseed rape will have as well. But I'm not going to find one, but I thought I'd just have a look. Last year it came up within 6 days. We desperately need another rain to get this oilseed rape up and away from the cabbage stem flea beetle, which is this nightmare beetle that attacks it as soon as it comes through the ground and then lays eggs in it. To lessen the risk, it's all its farming is about, is lessening the risk. I've grown 2 highly vigorous hybrid varieties I've chosen to put in the ground for oilseed rape to get around this cabbage stem flea beetle. They've bred into oilseed rape incredible vigour, autumn vigour, and it should grow away. But it's got to get away for the first stage and germinate and get up first to get away from the cabbage stem flea beetle. So yeah, that's what's happening with this oilseed rape up here. And also lessening the risk, I have already booked the fertiliser, because that was the big worry, is the growing costs of oilseed rapes are astronomical, chiefly because it uses the most amount of nitrogen fertiliser of all the crops we grow. So I have booked nitrogen fertiliser for next delivery, next March time, at £590 a tonne. That's liquid, which is less than it was March last year when Ukraine all kicked off, and it got up to about 800 and something pounds, 850 I think it hit, liquid fertiliser, with solids at 1,000. So I've done that. But just going back onto this stewardship and people not growing rape and break crops, it's AB15 is the stewardship scheme, and you are paid £522 for 2 years to put a legume break in instead of putting a break crop in. And it's attractive to farmers. And my neighbour, I've got one neighbour who's done 200 acres, another neighbour in that direction has done 250 acres of it. And it's going to be a big change. And basically you get paid by the government the subsidy to put a legume mix in and leave it for 2 years. So it's 2 years, and then you put a first week. It acts like a break crop, rather than having all the risks of putting oilseed rape in, or spring beans, or winter beans, or linseed. You do this government scheme. That's what's happening at the moment. I might well consider it. I'm thinking, well, I've got storage, tricky grain storage. Be really nice just to mono crop. Maybe I would do this scheme of right across the farm and then just grow wheat, and use this scheme as a break crop and not actually plant any oilseed rape. But I'm tempted to put oilseed rape in this year because it's a tricky crop to grow. We got on extremely well this year after a number of years of iffy crops. This year's oilseed rape yielded well. We got 1.45 tonnes a hectare, an acre, and 49% oil, which I've never seen before. That gives me a 17% price bonus, so an additional £90 a tonne, purely because that oil was so high. So I'm doing that with this. And also because I enjoy farming. It's all very well going into, you know, rewilding, etc. I get real pleasure from combine a crop, the risks associated with it. We all remember, you know, like we were discussing 1976, and I remember the 2018 where we had that crazy early harvest, 2020 harvest when it was flipping awful because we couldn't get the crop in because 2019 was so wet. It's all part of farming, is managing the risk, living with the seasons. I really enjoy, Charlie, being on the combine, seeing those yield maps. So I want to continue farming as long as I can, rather than going into these environmental schemes. But who knows what's down the way. So yeah, that's it for this Harry's farm. Next one up, Defender, Land Rover Defender is going back to Land Rover. I had it 12 months loan. I'll do a review after 12 months on that. And then we'll be looking at the other fields, cropping, etc., and cultivations, and see now on the next visit whether this oilseed rape has actually come through the ground. And we do get the rain on Monday. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Harry's Farm. Please go and buy Farmers Weekly this week. It was on the cover, which will never happen again, I'm sure. A Ferrari on the cover of Farmers Weekly. But anyway, if you have enjoyed this video, keep watching, keep subscribing. More videos coming along very soon.